Amelia Carter picked up the coffee pot and moved between the tables at Sunrise Diner. The morning rush kept her busy. People came in for breakfast before work, and Amelia knew most of them by name. She had worked at this diner for 5 years. Now, it was small but clean, with big windows that let in the morning light. The smell of bacon and pancakes filled the air as she refilled coffee cups with a practiced hand. "More coffee, sir?" she asked the quiet man in the corner booth. He nodded without looking up from his newspaper. Amelia filled his cup with fresh, hot coffee. He was not like her regular customers who talked about their families or complained about work. This man came in every morning at exactly 7:15, ordered black coffee and wheat toast, and barely spoke more than a few words. Amelia didn't mind. The morning rush kept her too busy to wonder about quiet customers. Between taking orders, carrying plates, and making sure everyone had full coffee cups, she barely had time to think. But she was good at her job. She never mixed up orders or forgot who wanted what. The diner owner, Pete, often said she was the best waitress he had ever hired. What no one at the diner knew was that Amelia loved science. She kept her astronomy books under the counter and studied them during slow times. At night, she took classes at the community college, learning about physics and space. She couldn't afford a university education, so she took 1 or 2 classes each semester. She hoped that someday she might finish a degree, but at 26, working full-time and studying when she could, that day seemed far away. The quiet man in the corner finished his toast and set his newspaper aside. Amelia brought his check, and as she did, she noticed he was reading an article about space exploration. "Interesting article?" she asked, trying to be friendly. The man looked up, seeming surprised that she had spoken to him about something other than his order. "Yes, they're discussing the possibility of finding new Earth-like planets." Amelia couldn't help herself. The article probably means exoplanets in the habitable zone, but they're making it sound like they've found exact Earth copies, which isn't accurate. The man raised his eyebrows. "Oh? How so?" Amelia realized she might have spoken too freely with a customer. Most people didn't want a science lesson with their breakfast. "Sorry, I just find space interesting. I'm probably bothering you." "Not at all," the man said, putting down his newspaper completely. "Please continue." Something about his interest encouraged her. "Well, the Kepler Space Telescope has found thousands of exoplanets, but most aren't really like Earth. Some might be in the habitable zone where water could exist as a liquid, but that doesn't mean they're Earth-like in other ways. They might have different atmospheres or gravity that would make them impossible for humans to live on." The man studied her with new interest. "That's quite knowledgeable for a waitress?" Amelia smiled. She was used to people being surprised. "I take night classes in astrophysics just for fun." "Just for fun," he repeated as if the idea was foreign to him. "Impressive." Amelia shrugged. "I should get back to work. Enjoy your day, sir." The man left his usual tip and walked out. Amelia quickly cleared his table for the next customers waiting by the door. What Amelia didn't know was that the quiet man was Daniel Frost, founder and CEO of Frost Innovations. His company was worth over $40 billion. Few people would recognize him, though. Unlike many tech billionaires, Daniel avoided publicity. His company photo was 10 years old, and he rarely gave interviews. He liked his privacy, and found that being anonymous helped him observe the world more honestly. 3 weeks ago, Daniel had moved his research division to this small town outside Pittsburgh. He had bought an old warehouse and secretly converted it into a state-of-the-art laboratory. His team was working on technology that could change space travel forever, but they had hit roadblocks. They needed fresh ideas from people who thought differently. Daniel had come to the diner by chance the first day. He had been told the town had a brilliant scientist living here, but he assumed it would be a professor at the local university. He kept coming back because the coffee was good and the diner was quiet enough to read his reports. But today, this waitress had surprised him. She had not only recognized the flaws in the newspaper article, but had explained complex astronomy concepts clearly and accurately. Daniel had met many brilliant scientists with fancy degrees who couldn't explain their work half as well. The next day, Daniel came back to the diner. He watched Amelia more carefully this time. During a slow period, he noticed her pull out a notebook and work on what looked like complex equations. When a young boy asked her about the stars while his mother paid the bill, she took time to explain constellations to him with genuine enthusiasm. For the next week, Daniel observed Amelia. He saw how she juggled the busy diner work with kindness and efficiency. He noticed how she helped an elderly customer cut his food without making him feel embarrassed. He watched her study her science books during breaks instead of checking her phone like the other staff. Daniel had built his fortune by seeing potential where others didn't look. His company hired people based on their abilities, not their degrees or backgrounds. Some of his best engineers had been self-taught, but Amelia was something special. The way she solved problems, her clear explanations, her ability to work under pressure, these were rare qualities even among his team of geniuses. On Friday morning, Daniel made a decision. He called his chief scientist, Olivia Winters, and asked her to meet him at the diner. Olivia was skeptical when Daniel explained his interest in a waitress with no formal scientific training, but she trusted Daniel's judgment. He had been right, too many times before. "Just come meet her," Daniel said. "Watch her work, listen to her speak, then tell me what you think." The next morning, instead of coming alone, Daniel arrived with Olivia. They sat in his usual corner booth. When Amelia came to take their order, Daniel asked for his usual. Olivia ordered pancakes. "And could we speak with you when you have a break?" Daniel added. Amelia looked surprised but nodded. "I have a 15-minute break at 9. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," Daniel assured her. "I just have a proposition I'd like to discuss with you." Amelia looked confused but went back to work. As they waited, Daniel watched Olivia observe Amelia. He saw the scientist's expression change from doubt to interest as she watched Amelia efficiently manage the busy diner while answering a customer's question about black holes. "Okay," Olivia said quietly. "I see what you mean. But can she really help with our project?" Daniel smiled. Sometimes the best solutions come from unexpected places. Little did Amelia know, as she moved between tables with her coffee pot, that her life was about to change forever. The quiet man in the corner wasn't just a customer. He was someone who had seen something special in her, something she hardly recognized in herself. And by the end of the day, she would never look at the stars the same way again. Amelia finished taking an order from table 6 and glanced at the clock. It was 9 o'clock, time for her break. She felt nervous as she walked toward the corner booth where the quiet man sat with his female companion. She had never spoken much with this customer before. Apart from their brief conversation about space, now he wanted to discuss something with her and she had no idea what it could be. "Please sit down," the man said, gesturing to the empty seat across from them. Amelia slid into the booth, smoothing her apron nervously. "I should introduce myself properly," the man said. "My name is Daniel Frost, and this is Dr. Olivia Winters, my chief scientist at Frost Innovations." Amelia's eyes widened. Everyone knew about Frost Innovations, the company that made breakthroughs in clean energy and advanced computer systems. And Daniel Frost was famous for being one of the richest people in the world, though he rarely appeared in public. "You're Daniel Frost?" Amelia said, unable to hide her surprise. "But you come here every day for toast and coffee." Daniel smiled. "I prefer simple breakfasts, and I like this diner. It's quiet, and the service is excellent." Amelia laughed nervously. "I thought this was about your coffee. Was it too cold yesterday?" "The coffee is fine," Daniel said. "I'm here to talk about you, Amelia." Amelia looked confused. "Me?" Olivia spoke for the first time. "Mr. Frost mentioned your interest in astrophysics. He was quite impressed by your knowledge." Amelia felt her cheeks grow warm. "It's just a hobby. I take classes when I can afford them." "I've been observing you," Daniel said. "Not in a strange way," he added quickly. "But I noticed you working on some equations during your breaks. May I ask what you were calculating?" Amelia hesitated. People usually laughed when she talked about her interests. "I was trying to work out a problem about gravity waves. My professor mentioned it in class, but we didn't have time to explore it fully. I've been trying different approaches." Olivia pulled out a tablet from her bag and pushed it across the table. Could you show me what you were working on? Amelia looked at the blank screen, then picked up the digital pen attached to the side. Carefully, she wrote out the equations she'd been working on during her breaks. It took her several minutes, and she felt self-conscious with both of them watching her. When she finished, Olivia stared at the screen with a strange expression. She turned to Daniel and nodded slightly. Amelia, Daniel said, leaning forward, I'd like to offer you a job at Frost Innovations. Amelia nearly knocked over the water glass in front of her. What? But I'm just a waitress. You're not just anything, Daniel said firmly. The work you just showed Dr. Winters is remarkable. You've approached this problem in a way our team hasn't considered. But I don't have a degree, Amelia said. I've only taken a few classes. Olivia tapped the tablet screen. This work shows natural talent. Degrees can be earned. Talent like yours is rare. Amelia looked between them, waiting for the joke to end. When they continued to look at her seriously, she shook her head. I don't understand. What kind of job? We need researchers for a special project, Daniel explained. People who think differently. People who can see solutions others miss. What's the project? Amelia asked. Daniel glanced around the diner. I can't discuss details here, but I can tell you it involves space travel technology that could change humanity's future. Amelia's heart beat faster. Space travel had been her dream since she was a little girl looking up at the stars. But reality had always gotten in the way. Bills to pay, rent due every month, classes she could barely afford. What would this job pay? She asked practically. Daniel named a figure that made Amelia gasp. It was more money than she would make in 5 years at the diner. This can't be real, she said. Why would you offer me this? You don't even know me. I know enough, Daniel said. I've built my company by finding talent in unexpected places. Some of my best engineers never finished college. What matters to me is how you think, not what degrees you have. Pete called from across the diner. Amelia, break's over. Amelia stood up quickly. I have to get back to work. Of course, Daniel said. But before you go, I'd like to invite you to visit our facility tomorrow, see what we're working on. Then decide. Amelia hesitated. I'm scheduled to work tomorrow. I'll speak with your manager, Daniel said. If you're interested, that is. Amelia thought about her tiny apartment, her second-hand textbooks, the student loans she'd already taken out for her few classes. She thought about the stars she studied every night and the equations that filled her notebooks. Yes, she said. I'm interested. The rest of Amelia's shift passed in a blur. She spilled coffee twice and mixed up orders, things she never did. Her mind was racing with questions. Was this really happening? Was Daniel Frost, one of the richest men in the world, really offering her a job? It seemed impossible. After Daniel and Olivia left, Pete called Amelia to his office. She worried she was in trouble for talking too long on her break. But instead, Pete looked stunned. Do you know who that was in the corner booth? He asked. He said he's Daniel Frost. Amelia replied. The Daniel Frost, Pete confirmed. He just paid me a month's worth of your salary to give you tomorrow off. Said he wants to offer you a job. Is that true? Amelia nodded, still not quite believing it herself. He wants me to visit his research facility tomorrow. Pete whistled. 5 years you've been serving him coffee and I had no idea. A billionaire sitting in my diner. He looked at Amelia with new respect. What kind of job? Something with space research, Amelia said. I don't know the details yet. Well, Pete said, scratching his head. I'd hate to lose my best waitress, but I'd be a fool to stand in your way. You always did have your head in the stars. When Amelia left the diner that evening, she looked up at the darkening sky. The first stars were just becoming visible. All her life she had dreamed of doing something important, something related to the stars she loved. But she had accepted that dreams like that weren't for people like her. Now she wondered if that was about to change. Tomorrow she would find out what Daniel Frost wanted from her. Tomorrow she might take her first step away from serving coffee and toward the stars. As she walked home, Amelia felt both terrified and excited. Whatever happened tomorrow would change her life forever. She just had to be brave enough to take the chance. Amelia stood in front of a large warehouse outside of town. The building looked old and forgotten from the outside. Rust streaked the metal walls, and weeds grew around the fence. She checked the address on her phone again. This couldn't be right. She had expected something modern with glass walls and the Frost Innovations logo. A black car pulled up beside her, and Daniel Frost stepped out. "Good morning, Amelia. Right on time." "This is your research facility?" Amelia asked, looking at the warehouse doubtfully. Daniel smiled. "Appearances can be deceiving. We prefer to stay under the radar." He walked to a small side door and pressed his hand against a hidden panel. The door slid open silently. "After you." Amelia stepped inside and gasped. The inside of the warehouse looked nothing like the outside. Bright lights illuminated a vast space filled with advanced equipment. People in lab coats moved between workstations. Large screens displayed complex diagrams and data streams. In the center of the room stood a massive metal structure that looked like nothing Amelia had ever seen before. "Welcome to Project Ascension," Daniel said, watching her reaction carefully. "What is all this?" Amelia asked, turning in a slow circle to take it all in. "Before I can explain, I need you to sign some papers." Daniel led her to a small office at the side of the main floor. Olivia Winters was waiting for them with a stack of documents. "These are confidentiality agreements," Olivia explained. "What you're about to see is secret, not just company secret, but government-level secret." Amelia hesitated before taking the pen. "What exactly am I getting into here?" "The chance to make history," Daniel said simply. "Nothing illegal, I promise. Just something so advanced that we need to protect it until we're ready." Amelia read through the documents carefully. They were complex, but the main point was clear. She could never talk about what she saw or did here. The penalties for breaking the agreement were severe. She signed her name on the last page. "Good," Daniel said. "Now let me show you what we're working on." They walked back to the main floor and approached the large metal structure in the center. Up close, Amelia could see it was some kind of engine, but unlike any engine she had studied. "This," Daniel said proudly, "is the Ascension engine, the first practical faster-than-light travel system for human use." Amelia stared at him. "Faster than light? That's impossible. Einstein's theories—" "Einstein was working with the knowledge of his time," Olivia cut in. "We found a way around those limitations, at least in theory." "The mathematics work on paper," Daniel explained. "We can prove it should work. But we've hit roadblocks in the practical application. Something is missing." Amelia walked slowly around the engine, studying its design. "You're bending space," she said after a moment. "Not trying to move through it faster than light, but bending the space itself." Olivia looked impressed. "Exactly. We create a bubble of space-time around the vessel. Inside the bubble, we never exceed light speed, but the bubble itself can move through space faster than light." "The Alcubierre drive," Amelia said. "I read about the theory in one of my textbooks, but they said it would require impossible amounts of energy and exotic matter that might not even exist. That's where we've made breakthroughs," Daniel said. "We've found ways to reduce the energy requirements dramatically, and the exotic matter problem." He looked at Olivia. "We've created a substitute," Olivia said. "Not true exotic matter with negative mass, but a field effect that produces the same results." Amelia's mind raced with questions. "But there are still problems?" Daniel nodded. "We can create the field, but we can't stabilize it. The bubble forms and then collapses almost immediately. We need someone to look at our work with fresh eyes." "Why me?" Amelia asked. "You must have brilliant scientists working for you." "We do," Olivia said. "But they all think the same way, follow the same rules. They've been trained in the same schools, read the same papers. You've studied the science, but you've also lived in the real world, solving practical problems." "When I saw your approach to that gravity wave problem," Daniel added, "I realized you think differently. You find solutions others miss." Amelia looked at the engine again. If what they were saying was true, this machine could change humanity forever. Humans could reach other star systems within a human lifetime. Colonies on distant planets would be possible. It would be the biggest leap forward since humans first left Earth's atmosphere. "I want to show you something else," Daniel said. He led her to a large screen on the wall and pulled up a set of equations. "This is what's stumping us, the field stabilization problem." Amelia studied the numbers and symbols. They were complex but not beyond her understanding. She had worked through similar problems in her astronomy classes, but there was something off about the approach. "You're treating it like a purely mathematical problem," she said after a few minutes. "But what if it's more like a balancing problem?" "What do you mean?" Olivia asked. "At the diner, I have to balance trays with heavy plates. If I tried to calculate the exact physics, I'd drop everything. Instead, I feel the balance and adjust constantly." Amelia pointed to part of the equation. "You're trying to set perfect conditions from the start, but what if the system needs to constantly adjust itself?" Olivia and Daniel exchanged a look. "A feedback loop," Olivia said slowly. "We've been trying to create perfect stability instead of a dynamic system that maintains its own balance." "Like riding a bicycle," Amelia suggested. "You don't stay upright by solving equations, you make tiny adjustments constantly." Daniel looked excited. This could be the approach we've been missing. He turned to Amelia. "Will you join our team? Help us solve this?" Amelia looked around the warehouse again. Yesterday she had been a waitress with dreams that seemed impossible. Today she was standing in front of technology that could take humans to the stars. "What would I do exactly?" she asked. "You'd work with our team," Olivia explained. "Learn everything we know, then help us think differently about the problems." "We'd start you with a 6-month contract," Daniel added. "The salary we discussed, plus housing near the facility. After that, if things work out, a permanent position." Amelia thought about her small apartment, her student loans, her dreams of finishing her degree someday. She thought about the diner, where she would serve the same meals and pour the same coffee every day for years to come. Then she thought about the stars. "Yes," she said. "I'll do it." Daniel smiled and held out his hand. "Welcome to Project Ascension, Amelia." As they shook hands, Amelia couldn't help feeling that her life had changed forever. Yesterday she had been just another waitress. Today, she was part of a team that might change the course of human history. She had no idea what challenges lay ahead. She would face doubt from the other scientists, struggle to catch up on years of specialized knowledge, and work longer hours than she ever had at the diner. But in that moment, looking at the massive engine that might someday take humans to the stars, Amelia knew she had made the right choice. The quiet man who had watched her for weeks had seen something in her that she barely recognized in herself. Now it was her chance to prove him right. 3 months passed quickly for Amelia. Her life had changed completely since that morning when Daniel Frost had revealed his true identity at the diner. Now, instead of serving coffee and taking orders, she spent her days working with some of the smartest scientists in the world on a project that could change humanity's future. The first few weeks had been hard. Some of the scientists looked down on her. They had fancy degrees from top universities. Amelia had only taken a few community college classes. They used complex terms she didn't know, and sometimes they spoke too fast for her to follow. But Amelia was used to working hard. She stayed late every night, reading and studying. She asked questions even when she felt stupid. Slowly, she began to understand the complex science behind Project Ascension. To her surprise, Amelia found that her years at the diner had prepared her in unexpected ways. She was good at managing her time, working under pressure, and solving problems quickly. When equipment broke down, Amelia often found practical fixes while the other scientists were still discussing theories. When team members argued, she used the same skills she had used to handle angry customers. She became a bridge between the different research groups, translating complex ideas into simpler language. By the end of the second month, even the scientists who had doubted her began to respect her contributions. Olivia Winters became her mentor, helping Amelia fill in the gaps in her formal education. And Daniel Frost checked in regularly, always interested in her unique perspective on their challenges. Tonight, Amelia was working late again. The main research floor was quiet. Most of the team had gone home hours ago. Only the soft hum of computers and the occasional beep of testing equipment broke the silence. Amelia sat at her workstation, surrounded by screens showing complex simulations of the Ascension engine. For weeks, they had been trying to solve the field stabilization problem. Amelia's idea about dynamic balance had led to promising new approaches, but they still couldn't maintain the field long enough for practical use. The bubble of space-time would form, begin to move, and then collapse within seconds. Amelia rubbed her tired eyes. She had been staring at the same equations for hours. Maybe she needed a break. She stood up and walked over to the small kitchen area to make some coffee. As she waited for the water to boil, she found herself thinking about the diner. It seemed like another life now. She wondered how Pete and the other waitresses were doing. The coffee machine beeped. Amelia poured herself a cup and walked back to her workstation. As she passed the main engine, she stopped. Something about the way the light reflected off its metal surface triggered a memory. At the diner, they had an old coffee machine that would shake violently if you didn't place the pot in exactly the right spot. Amelia had learned that the problem wasn't the pot or the machine itself, but the connection between them. The vibrations would build up until they became too strong. Amelia put down her coffee cup and hurried back to her computer. She pulled up the latest simulation and watched it again. The field formed perfectly, began to move, and then, there. Just before it collapsed, there was a pattern of energy fluctuations she hadn't noticed before. What if the problem wasn't with the field itself, but with how it connected to normal space? What if the vibrations at the boundary were building up, like that old coffee machine? Amelia began typing quickly, adding a new element to their model. She created a buffer zone between the space-time bubble and normal space. This zone would absorb and dampen the vibrations, preventing them from building up to the point of collapse. Hours passed as Amelia refined her idea, running simulation after simulation. Each time, the field lasted longer before collapsing. By 6:14 a.m., she had a model where the field remained stable for over 5 minutes. It wasn't perfect, but it was far better than anything they had achieved before. Amelia was so focused on her work that she didn't hear the door open. She jumped when someone spoke behind her. "You're here early," Daniel Frost said, looking at his watch. "Or should I say late?" Amelia turned, her face tired but excited. "I think I've found something. Look at this." Daniel came over to her workstation. Amelia ran the simulation again, explaining her idea about the buffer zone and how it dampened the vibrations at the boundary. "It's like putting a rubber mat under that shaky coffee machine at the diner," she explained. "The vibrations get absorbed instead of building up." Daniel watched the simulation complete its run. The field remained stable for exactly 5 minutes and 27 seconds before collapsing. It was more than 10 times longer than their previous best result. "This is remarkable," he said quietly. "How did you think of this?" Amelia shrugged. "I was making coffee and remembered that old machine at the diner. Sometimes the simplest solutions come from everyday problems." Daniel smiled. "This is exactly why I brought you here. You see connections that others miss." He looked at his watch again. "It's almost dawn. You should get some rest. We'll gather the team in the morning and share your discovery." "I'm too excited to sleep," Amelia admitted. "Try anyway," Daniel advised. "Tomorrow will be a big day." The next morning, Amelia presented her findings to the full research team. She stood in front of the large screen explaining her idea in simple terms. As she spoke, she could see the excitement growing on the faces of the other scientists. Even those who had doubted her at first were nodding in agreement. When she finished, Olivia Winters was the first to speak. "We need to test this on the actual engine. If the simulations are correct, we could be ready for a real-world test within weeks." The next few days were a blur of activity. The entire team worked together to implement Amelia's buffer zone concept into the actual engine. Engineers modified the hardware, while programmers updated the control systems. Amelia worked alongside them all, learning everything she could about the practical side of the project. 6 days after her middle-of-the-night breakthrough, they were ready for a test. The team gathered in the control room, watching the monitors nervously. This would be the first test using Amelia's new approach. Field generation in 3, 2, 1. The lead engineer counted down. On the main floor, visible through a thick glass window, the Ascension engine hummed to life. A faint shimmer appeared around it as the space-time field began to form. Field stable, someone called out. Beginning movement phase. This was where previous tests had failed. As soon as they tried to move the field, the vibrations would build up and cause it to collapse. Amelia held her breath. Movement initiated. Field maintaining stability. Buffer zone functioning as predicted. The shimmering field moved slowly across the test area. Seconds passed, then minutes. The field continued to move, maintaining its integrity the entire time. After exactly 5 minutes and 30 seconds, they ended the test. The field dissolved smoothly, without the violent collapse they had seen in earlier attempts. The control room erupted in cheers. People hugged each other and patted Amelia on the back. She had done it. Her idea had worked. Daniel approached her with a wide smile. "Congratulations, Amelia. You've just solved one of our biggest problems." Amelia felt tears in her eyes. Just a few months ago, she had been serving coffee and dreaming of the stars. Now she had helped make space travel possible. "What happens next?" she asked. "We refine your solution, make it even better," Daniel said. "And then we prepare for a full test. If all goes well, we'll be ready to send an unmanned probe into space within 6 months." As the celebration continued around her, Amelia thought about how completely her life had changed. The waitress from the small diner had found her place among the stars. 2 years had passed since Amelia Carter had served her last cup of coffee at Sunrise Diner. In that time, her life had transformed in ways she could never have imagined. The waitress who once studied astronomy books during slow periods at the Yo Diner now held the title of Chief Scientific Officer at Frost Interstellar, the new name for Daniel Frost's company. Today was the most important day in her new life. Amelia stood on the observation deck of Ascension 1, the first human-carrying ship designed to travel faster than light. Through the large window, she could see the launch facility below. Hundreds of people moved around the complex, making final preparations for the historic journey. The ship would carry 32 brave explorers to Alpha Centauri, the closest star system to Earth. The journey would take just 8 days using the Ascension engine. Without the faster-than-light technology, the same trip would take over 4 years, even with the best conventional engines. Amelia felt both proud and nervous. Her work had been essential to making this mission possible. After her breakthrough with the buffer zone concept, she had continued to improve the technology. Each test had been more successful than the last. 6 months ago, they had sent an unmanned probe to Mars and back in less than an hour. Now they were ready for the next giant leap, sending humans to another star. "Nervous?" asked a voice behind her. Daniel Frost joined her at the window, looking out at the busy launch pad. "A little," Amelia admitted. "What if something goes wrong?" "We've tested everything 100 times," Daniel reminded her. "The ship is as safe as we can make it." Amelia nodded. She knew he was right. They had been careful and thorough. Still, this was the first time humans would travel faster than light. No amount of testing could remove all risk from such a historic journey. "I just got word that our special guest has arrived," Daniel said. "Would you like to meet him?" Amelia turned from the window. "Who?" "Follow me," Daniel said with a smile. They left the observation deck and walked through the ship to the main boarding area. The explorers were gathering there, making their final preparations before a launch. They were a mix of scientists, pilots, and specialists, all chosen for their skills and courage. Near the back of the group stood a young man in a crisp uniform. He looked nervous but excited as he studied a technical manual. Something about him seemed familiar to Amelia. "Kyle?" she asked, surprised. The young man looked up and broke into a wide smile. "Ms. Carter, I was hoping to see you before launch." Now Amelia recognized him. Kyle Stevens had been a regular customer at Sunrise Diner, a high school student who often came in to study. She had helped him with his science homework many times. "You're part of the mission?" Amelia asked, amazed. Kyle nodded proudly. "Junior science officer. I study astrophysics at the university now, thanks to you." "Thanks to me? You inspired me," Kyle explained. "The way you talked about the stars, how you helped me understand difficult concepts. I decided to follow in your footsteps." Amelia felt touched. She had never thought her small acts of kindness at the diner had made such an impact. "When I heard you were working for Frost Innovations," Kyle continued, "I applied for every scholarship I could find. I wanted to work with you someday. I never imagined it would be on the first mission to another star." Daniel, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "Kyle was the top candidate in our Young Explorers program. When I saw his application essay, about a waitress who inspired his love of space, I knew we had to include him." "I'm proud of you, Kyle," Amelia said sincerely. An announcement came over the speakers. "All explorers to final briefing. Launch in 90 minutes. Kyle looked at his watch. "I have to go. Thank you again, Miss Carter, for everything." As the young man hurried off to join his team, Amelia felt a wave of emotion. Her journey had come full circle. Once she had been the one dreaming of the stars while serving coffee. Now she had helped make space travel possible, and had inspired others to reach for the stars too. Amelia and Daniel returned to the observation deck. Below them, the launch preparations continued. The massive ship gleamed in the morning sunlight, its sleek design hiding the revolutionary technology inside. "I have something for you," Daniel said, handing Amelia a small box. Inside was a beautiful pin in the shape of a star, made of platinum and tiny diamonds. On the back was an inscription, "To AC, who saw beyond the horizon." "It's beautiful," Amelia said, pinning it to her jacket. "A small token of appreciation," Daniel replied. "Without you, we wouldn't be here today." Amelia thought about how strange life was. If Daniel hadn't come to her diner, if he hadn't noticed her interest in astronomy, if he hadn't taken a chance on a waitress with no formal training, none of this would have happened. "What are you thinking about?" Daniel asked. "How much has changed?" Amelia answered. 2 years ago, I was worried about paying rent and saving enough for one class per semester. Now I'm part owner of a $1 trillion company watching a ship we built prepare to visit another star. Daniel nodded. "I've built my career on finding brilliance in unexpected places, but you were my best discovery." "Speaking of discoveries," Amelia said, "I wanted to talk to you about the Sunrise Foundation." The Sunrise Foundation was Amelia's project, funded by her share of Frost Interstellar. Its mission was to find and support talented people who lacked opportunities, people like she had been. "How is it going?" Daniel asked. "We've identified over 200 promising candidates so far," Amelia said proudly. "People working in factories, stores, restaurants, places no one looks for scientific talent. We're offering them education and jobs just like you did for me." "Genius hides in plain sight," Daniel said. "That's a good motto for your foundation." "I borrowed it from something you once said," Amelia admitted. A new announcement came over the speakers. 30 minutes to launch. All non-essential personnel please clear the launch area. They watched as the ground crew finished their work and moved to safe distances. Soon the ship would activate its conventional engines to leave Earth. Once in space, it would engage the ascension drive and make the jump to Alpha Centauri. "Not bad for a waitress and a guy who doesn't know how to make good coffee," Daniel joked, repeating words they had shared many times over the past 2 years. Amelia smiled. "When people write about this day in history books, they'll focus on the technology or the politics or the money. But the real story is about seeing potential where others don't bother to look." Below them, the countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Amelia thought about Kyle and the other explorers. They were about to make history, traveling farther than any humans had ever gone before. And in a small way, it had all started with a waitress who loved the stars and a billionaire who had taken the time to notice. 3, 2, 1. The engines roared to life, and Ascension 1 began to rise from the launch pad. Amelia and Daniel, watched in silence as the ship climbed higher and higher, carrying humanity's hopes and dreams toward the stars. "Ready to make history?" Daniel asked quietly. Amelia nodded. Again, as the ship disappeared from view, Amelia thought about the lonely nights she had spent looking up at the stars, wondering if humans would ever reach them. Now she had helped make that dream come true. The waitress from Sunrise Diner had found her place in the universe, all because someone had taken the time to see the extraordinary in what others considered ordinary.